Status, money, power. Are these things that you crave? Well, game dev will ensure that you are literally none of those things. Indie game dev is listed in the Oxford Dictionary as spending years of your life trying to complete one singular game, only for it to sell 3 copies when you finally release it on Steam. Given that I have non-existent self-esteem, am borderline unemployed, and haven't felt the sun on my skin in close to a calendar month, I am tragically already predisposed to being a game developer. Truthfully, game dev is something that I have long wanted to attempt, and given that over the past few days I have accumulated enough alcohol to adequately numb the migraines caused by reading responses on Stack Overflow, I decided that now was the time to pull the trigger, so to speak. If you've never made a game before, here's the general process. Step 1. Download a game engine. I'm gonna use Unity. Step 2. Convince your psychiatrist to give you a prescription for Adderall. Step 3. While in a stimulant-induced fervor, use ChatGPT to write as much of the code for you as humanly possible. Step 4. Spend hours reading decades-old niche forum posts to solve an incredibly specific problem, only for the original author to write, "Never mind, I figured it out." Step 5. Pray. Step 6. Release your game on Steam and make millions. Having completed steps 1 and 2, I decided it was time to learn to code. The first thing I did after opening Unity was spend hours trying to get this cube to move around in a square without looking at any tutorials. The code I wrote was objectively disgusting, and I was forced to use all 5 of my remaining brain cells. But in the end, I was successful. Oh my god, thank fuck. Would you believe me if I told you this took me 5 hours to make?
No.
After this experience, I was ready to give up on my dreams of ever making a game. That was until I remembered I had forgotten about step 3. Just get ChatGPT to do it for you. Now, while watching a cube float around in a square may have been suitable entertainment for a medieval serf, the modern man is slightly more refined. And so, having learnt from my mistakes, I booted up Unity again. Movement script? Done. Gravity? Coded. Sleep? Deprived. My first game? Almost finished.
What the fuck is this piece of shit?
At this point, my cup had run empty, and in my haste to retrieve another gin and tonic, disaster struck. Oh, fuck! Remember, kids, saving your project is for cowards. The next day, I woke up bright, early, and eager to start a new project. I definitely did not wake up at 2 p.m. severely hungover. Clearly, I had decided I wasn't suffering enough because I had the brilliant idea to break up with ChatGPT and attempt to code this project by myself. I won't lie to you, the beginning of this did not go smoothly.
Okay, not what I was going for. Yep, and now we're just pretty sure this should fix it. Huh? Huh? What the fuck? Okay.
A weaker being would have folded under the immense pressure of coding your own player movement script. But in just 3 short hours, I was able to not only code a player movement script, but a mouse movement script as well. And now I can move around like this. For this game, I want to create something more aesthetic. So I did what any professional would do and bought an asset pack. Is what I wrote in my script. But for some god-forsaken reason that can only be explained by a bout of sleep-deprived madness, I thought it would be a better idea to model all of the assets myself in Blender. I am not an artist. I have never used Blender. What followed was an entire day of getting manhandled by Blender. Most tutorials, helpful as they were outdated, and I would be frequently roadblocked by a menu that had changed or a button that had disappeared. If you thought Unity is difficult to learn, competency with Blender comes with non-negotiable trauma. I spent hours trying to get a model of a vase to render and export. However, when I clicked a box called Backface Culling, I discovered that I had somehow modeled the entire vase completely inside out. At this point, I was ready to give up on the whole Blender idea and spend my precious liquor money on low-poly dungeon assets. And yet, on the second day of Blender, I became enlightened. I learned of a forbidden technique lost to time called just fucking trace around an image you found on the internet and then slap it on the model as a texture. We're gonna call this little guy Dave. Dave can just wait in a corner until we're ready for him. And now it's time to build Dave a lovely little dungeon. As something of a dungeon connoisseur myself, I know that every good dungeon has walls, floor, door, gravestone, crate. And now it's looking like an actual game. Unfortunately for me, most games include something called gameplay. The good news is that earlier in development, I had taken the time to write out lists of potential ideas, mechanics, and game loops. Is what I would have said if I was a puss. Now, I like cylindrical objects as much as the next guy. However, it's not exactly aesthetic. So I gave him a model and let him walk around. This was very easy to implement and worked on the first try. And now that our boy has hands, his violence cannot be contained. I added a slash effect every time he punches, and now it looks cool when he commits murder. But we wouldn't kill Dave for no reason, would we? That would be immoral and distasteful. Instead, we will be killing him for money. Well, now we need something to spend our newfound riches on. And so I thought it would be cool if upgrades were attained via some kind of card system. This took me 7 days straight to make, and I regret everything. Upgrades can be purchased from the shop. We don't talk about the shop. Good thing we got those upgrades, because unlike you, Dave actually has friends. And they aren't too happy about his mangled corpse. Let's introduce them. Gary is just like Dave, but he runs fast. Steve likes to shoot arrows, and Damo is fucking jacked. Dave walks like this, probably because he has never stepped foot inside a gym. The more rooms you clear, the more bozos you'll have to deal with. Also, I couldn't figure out how to code a bow and arrow on an enemy, so I gave Steve a cool hat instead. And now he shoots balls. Our boy, aka War Crime Machine, has 2 attacks, a melee dash attack and a knife attack. When you think about it, he really is just breaking and entering and then committing murder. The melee attack is infinitely spammable, but does less damage, while the knife is more limited and kills enemies instantly. I couldn't figure out how to make the throwing animation only use the arms without making it look like the player was having a stroke.
Ambulance! For me!
So the knives just appear from his chest. Everything was going smoothly. Too smoothly. Riddle me this. Who is more the fool? The operating system, whose updates do nothing but continually make it worse, or the man who installs it? After installing a Windows update that had been pestering me for 2 weeks, I was dismayed to discover that my Unity project would crash immediately on opening. This was mildly upsetting. I would love to tell you that I figured out a way to solve this problem using nothing but my raw intellect. But in reality, it just started working again after like 2 days. At this point, I decided I had better quit while I'm ahead. Up until now, I had actually not recorded any footage of the finished game. And so, if the game decided to corrupt itself again, this video, along with 1 full month of work, would be completely down the drain. I was fully expecting to make a fairly terrible game, but in the end, it turned out actually kind of fun. The amount of debris flying around in the higher levels, mixed with how quickly you can dispatch of enemies, makes the game a frantic but enjoyable mess. And the shop view, where you can view your progress, makes a kind of intrinsic reward for reaching higher levels. It does crash if you play for too long due to the increasing amount of enemies and debris spawned, but... So, what did I learn? Game dev is a painful, stress-inducing, lifespan-decreasing hobby. I probably spent as much time making the games as I did waiting for Unity to recompile the entirety of its framework every time I changed a single line of code. Well, I must be a sucker for pain because I loved every minute of it. And you know what that means. More videos soon.